Victor from Oyo State. I'm the coach for Oyo State. This is Best Legacy International Secondary School, Awe, in the city of Oyo. I'm here with my speakers from Oyo State to represent Oyo State, the pace-setting state. We're here for this nationwide e-debate, which is actually happening here live in the city of Makurdi in Benue State. Actually, debating is part of us in Oyo State. 2 years ago, we won the Southwest presidential debate, that's in 2022. And also the same year, we won the North debate at Lagos Ikeja Airport Hotel national debate in 2022. And so we are here in Makurdi to do the same thing, and we're here to lug it out with other states, and we believe we're going to floor every other state because we are the pace-setting state.
Good day, honorable members of this gathering. My name is Oyo Emmanuel, the chief speaker from Oyo State. Here I have my first supporting speaker. And I have my second supporting speaker. As usual, we are here to win because we have been second to none. We have never been defeated. So please, watching us, give us your support, and I promise it's gonna be a blissful experience. And as usual, Oyo State, we remain the pace setter.
We have come to the end of the preliminary stage, and I'm sure we cannot wait to see who the winners are going to be. But before then, I would like to acknowledge and appreciate the new Minister of Education, Dr. Murufu Olatuji Alausa, the Permanent Secretary, the Director, Senior Secondary Education, Hajia Binta Abdul Kadir, staff of the Department of the Ministry of Education that has ensured that this program, brought to you by Bring It On Africa, comes to your screen. And also, I would want to appreciate our host state, Benue State Government, the commissioners, and everyone who has hosted us so far, including St. John and Paul Pastoral Center. And I also want to thank our sponsors, UNESCO, Women Awake, Learning Impact, Unifinder, Rotec Energy Service, and also to all our viewers watching this. You are watching Niger Education TV, and this is the nationwide inter-secondary school e-debate. Moving on to the debate, the heat of the heat, and the last for the preliminary stage, I would call the moderator for this debate. Please help me welcome Sonia Tekura.
Hello everyone, my name is Tekura Sonia. I'm the moderator for this debate. In this debate, we have two sides, side proposition and side opposition. They're going to be speaking on the motion. Has Nigeria's educational policies adequately addressed the gap between rural and urban education in Nigeria? The lead speaker of Team Proposition, in person of Omotayo Emmanuel, the chief supporting speaker of Team Proposition, in person of Badege Sin Daniela, and the second supporting speaker of Side Proposition, in person of Oladapo Olami Posi. The lead speaker of Side Opposition, in person of Ndubisi Destiny, the chief supporting speaker of Side Opposition, in person of Nnamdi Destiny, and the second supporting speaker of Side Opposition, in person of Iyoke Paul. With this, I call on the lead speaker from Side Opposition to open the floor for their argument.
Good day, good evening, honorable members of this gathering. Standing before you is Omotayo Emmanuel, proudly representing Oyo State as the lead speaker for Team Proposition. We stand here to debate on a very critical topic that determines the future of our country, as Nigeria's educational policy adequately addresses the gap between rural and urban areas in Nigeria. As Team Proposition, we'll be navigating through three sub-arguments. We'll be telling you the gaps in Nigeria education, we'll be telling you the policies we have in place to cater for these gaps, and we will be telling you pointers that indicate that these gaps have been addressed. As the lead speaker for Team Proposition, I'll be telling you the gaps we have in Nigeria education. I'll be telling you the policies that we have in place to cater for this gap. My first supporting speaker here will be telling you the pointers that indicate that these gaps have been addressed. And my second supporting speaker here will be here to summarize the points for us. Let me start by dissecting these gaps and the policies we have in place for them. Let us start with infrastructure and facility. Picture two worlds within Nigeria. On one hand, we have a rural school where students learn under the tree due to the absence of classroom facility. On the other hand, we have the urban classroom where 80 students stay in a classroom that is meant for 40. Team opposition may come here and argue at the fact that rural schools lack classroom facility. That is actually true because according to UNICEF, 46% of rural schools lack access to classroom facility. But let me tell you, urban schools are not exempted. 36% of urban schools, they lack the access, they grapple from overcrowding and the access to infrastructural facility. And to address this, Nigeria's government have brought about the Universal Basic Education Commission grant, which has given funds specifically to cater for infrastructural development. The challenges are numerous, I know, but to say there is no progress is to not say the reality. Furthermore, we have teacher availability and quality. Reviews have shown it that public schools suffer from severe shortage of qualified teachers. 60% of teachers in public schools in rural areas, they tend to be unqualified due to inadequate training and incentive. While urban areas, they also have 40% of teachers with inadequate qualification. And to address this, the Nigerian government has the Teacher Special Salary Scheme that gives incentive to teachers in remote area, as well as the National Teacher Institute that aims at programs in retraining teachers in urban and rural centers. Policies like this are slowly changing the landscape. It is laying the foundation of the even distribution of teachers worldwide. We have the access to technology and digital world. Digital world is more crucial in our learning today. But 90% of rural schools, they lack the access to internet, computers, and digital tools. While 80% of urban schools, they have the access to internet, computer, and tools. And to solve this, the Nigerian government has come about with National Broadband Plan and with initiative like the School Net Nigeria. This is bringing about solar-powered classroom that is making rural areas also involved in the technology. And this is gradually bringing rural areas into the digital age, ensuring that they are not left out. We also have the enrollment and the dropout rate. 67% of rural children attend school, but at the end, 31% drop out due to factors like poverty, child labor, early marriage, and so on. Urban schools also have dropout rate, but theirs is lesser than that of the rural schools. We have 20%. And to curb this, the Nigerian government have the National Homegrown School Feeding Program that feeds over 9 million children in rural areas especially. This is not only addressing the gaps in education, it is addressing the social and the economic gaps that stop children from attending school. And this has brought about making sure that urban and rural children, they have the ability to complete their education. We have government funding and resource allocation. For this, rural schools are mostly, they receive 20 to 30% less funding per each student compared to urban private schools that has the access to sponsors from the urban areas. To curb this, the Nigerian government brought about the Universal Basic Education Commission that earmarked 60 billion naira, majorly for the infrastructural development and the training of teachers in urban areas. And in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the gap between urban and rural areas in Nigeria is undeniable. But so is the response of the government. Building a strong, inclusive educational system is a journey. We may not be at the destination yet, but each policy is a step closer. And with this understanding, I confidently support the motion that Nigeria educational policy have begun to address the gap between rural and urban areas in Nigeria.
You talked about
Make it snappy.
You talked about infrastructural development. It seems as though you're contradicting yourself.
Explain.
Because
you explained that in your speech. You're burning my time. Proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, the lead speaker from Team Proposition, for a wonderful performance. Now, we call on the lead speaker from Team Opposition to open the case for our argument.
The lead speaker from Team Proposition talked about the government incorporating broadband plan, incorporating solar panel. You're actually contradicting yourself, because we were talking about the question. You are not stating things according to the scope of the topic. Implementation and monitoring is required in this policy. How many rural schools have you seen solar panel or broadband plan being incorporated? Well, good morning, the moderator, honorable adjudicators, accurate timekeeper, my worthy friends in argument, attentive audience. Standing here before you is Unibisi Destiny, the lead speaker for Team Opposition, and I am speaking against the motion, has Nigerian educational policy adequately addressed the educational gap between the urban and rural areas? Before I proceed, I would like to, in the same spirit, highlight what my chief supporting speaker and my second supporting speakers will be talking about. My chief supporting speaker will throw light on the scope of limited access, teacher shortages, poor academic outcomes, to mention but a few, while my second supporting speaker will do more on the conclusion. First, Nigerian educational policy has not adequately addressed gaps because there are differences in the facilities. Education in the rural areas is not as better funded as those in the urban areas. There is limited access to educational facilities and resources, scarcity of more qualified teachers, and this potentially diminishes the academic achievements of students and their potential and their personal development, as it has been estimated by National Bureau of Statistics that about 70% of, as it has been estimated by National Bureau of Statistics that 70% of rural schools lack infrastructures. This is one of the problems of rural areas.
POI, please.
I'll get back to you, please.
Okay.
Furthermore, Nigerian educational policy has not adequately addressed any gap because there is limited access to technology. Rural areas struggle with lack of internet connectivity and digital resources. It has been estimated that 75% of rural areas lack reliable internet connectivity. They have limited availability of broadband internet access, which my friends in argument here couldn't put down a perfect statistics of what he meant by the Nigerian educational policies providing solar panels to help rural areas. In addition to this, it has not adequately addressed any gap because there is lack of conducive environment. The rural areas struggle with lack of conducive environment, incorporating both the physical environment, including dilapidated buildings, lack of hygienic facilities and clean water, and also the teaching environment, as they lack teachers who have the required resources and educational facilities. In addition to this, there is lack of policy implementation. He couldn't place that right. He couldn't give us he couldn't explain the scope of the topic well, because he was talking about broadband panel, solar panel access, which he couldn't put into place, because I have not seen any place where solar panels have been brought into the rural areas. There is lack of monitoring, there is lack of implementation. Policies are not implemented. Even though these policies are properly laid out, they are not implemented nor incorporated. For instance, in 1982, the 6334 educational policy was incorporated, where laboratories were built and properly equipped. But right now, have you heard of any public school with well-equipped laboratories? No, because it was not properly implemented and it was not evaluated nor was it monitored. Yes, over to your question.
Now, you mentioned that rural areas lack infrastructural facility.
Yes.
Now, put rural area aside. What about the funded private unbanned school?
Well, summarize your question first.
Let me finish my question. What about
Thank you.
Thank you, the lead speaker from Team Opposition, for a constructed argument. Now, I call on the chief supporting speaker of Team Proposition to buttress their stand on the motion.
The chief speaker from the team opposition came here and told us that she has not seen a state where there is the implementation of the national broadband policy. If there is no implementation of the national broadband policy in your state, that means your state government is to blame. Malcolm X once said, and I quote, "Education is the passport to the future, as tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." Standing before you is Badeka Shidalena from Team Oyo, here to propose the motion at hand. As my chief speaker has said, I will be giving us the pointers that have shown that these educational gaps have adequately been addressed. First off, we have the Universal Basic Education Act 2004. This policy fosters free and compulsory education for every Nigerian child for the first 9 years, which includes 6 years of primary education and 3 years of junior secondary school education, in line with the Sustainable Development Goal for qualitative education. Since the introduction of this policy in 2004, school attendance has increased to 68% as at 2020, according to UNICEF. Furthermore, also, we have the National Policy on Education, which fosters to promote education as a basic right for every Nigerian child, regardless of their age, gender, or religion. It also aims at bridging the gender and regional disparities between the rural and urban areas in Nigeria, and it also aims at bridging the gender and regional disparities in the northern areas between the boys and the girls, thus enrolling maximum enrollment of girls in the rural areas in northern areas. Furthermore, we have the improving of teacher quality by professionalizing the teaching profession across Nigeria. The National Policy on Education highlights the benefits of continuous assessments of teachers across Nigeria. It mandates adequate pre-service and in-service training for teachers to keep up with the modern teaching methods. It also sets a standard qualification for teachers with a minimum qualification of National Certificate on Education, NCE. Moreover, we have the Teacher Incentive Program. Honorable panelists, how would you feel if you were teachers and you had to travel 15 kilometers every day to get to your school because there is no additional compensation? The Teacher Incentive Program provides additional financial compensation for teachers who teach in rural or hard-to-reach areas, and it also provides access for more qualified teachers to come and teach in the rural areas. Can we then say that the government has not done enough after the implementation of all these policies? These policies are like gifts, and we alone determine what we do with it. At the entrance of a South African university, there's a message that says, "Destroying a nation does not require the use of atomic bomb or long-range missiles. It only requires low equality of education in a nation. Patients die in the hands of such doctors. Buildings collapse in the hands of such engineers. Justice is lost in the hands of such judges. Money is lost in the hands of such accountants and economics. Humanity dies in the hands of such religious scholars." Honorable panelists, the collapse of education is the collapse of a nation. Proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, the chief supporting speaker from Team Proposition, for a persuasive argument. Now, I call on the chief supporting speaker from Team Opposition to also buttress the stand on the motion.
I think that the motion says, has the educational policies addressed the educational gap between the rural and urban area? But the lead speaker from the proposition side here was telling us more about the educational gap between the private and the public schools. But that notwithstanding, standing before his Nnamdi Destiny, the chief supporting speaker of Team Opposition, and I am here to build on my lead speaker's argument. First, limited access to education. In rural areas, you will see that most of the children in the rural areas lack access to education because there are no schools, You see students traveling from far places just to go to school. You see students going kilometers to go to school. And then it has been noted by UNICAF that in the year 2019, that 22% of rural students dropped out of school because of geographical barriers. Going further, we have cultural barriers and poverty. We all know that in these rural areas, that the culture, that they take their culture into consideration a lot. Some cultures may talk about girls not being able to go to school, thereby denying these girls the opportunity to learn and further their education. Go for the teacher shortages. Due to the inadequate funding of the rural schools, a teacher would come and teach, and you guys know that most of these students in the rural areas, they do not find it easy to apprehend and get some things. Then these teachers now come and try their best to teach, and at the end of the day, they don't get paid. Don't you think that these teachers, when they see better opportunities in the rural areas, they tend to leave? You come to a school, you teach, you waste your time, everything, at the end of the day, you don't get paid. If it's me, I would seriously leave, and I know that you too would leave. Going further, yes, and the statistics to that point, research has shown that 60% of schools in the rural areas suffer severe teacher shortages.
POI, please.
Get back to you.
Okay.
This research was done by UNICEF in the year 2022. Going further, we have poor academic outcome. Due to the lack of conducive environment for learning in the rural areas, these students they don't feel compelled to learn. Like the education, the way that the school environment is, how unconducive it is, it makes them to feel that they can't learn here. The way that the educational policies ignore these places make the students, they won't be able to learn effectively. Research from the NCES in 2020 shows that rural students score 10% lower on standardized tests than urban students. Can I get your question?
Okay. You said that in 2019 there was a high rate of dropout of school, but UNICEF have proven in the year 2020 that there has been a 60% increase in school enrollment. Do you have any recent statistic to back your point?
I didn't get you.
You said in the year 2019 there was a high rate of out-of-school dropout, but UNICEF proved it in the year 2020 that there has been a 60% increase in school enrollment. Do you have any recent statistic to back your point?
But my time is up.
Thank you, the chief supporting speaker from side opposition, for a nice argument. Now, I call on the second supporting speaker from team proposition to close their case of the argument.
Not only did the team opposition keep us waiting for over 30 minutes here, they also kept skirting around the issue, showing us that they were not well versed in the area of the argument. The team opposition came here to tell us that the educational policies in Nigeria have not adequately addressed the educational gaps that exist between rural and urban areas, because students in rural areas still suffer from infrastructural facilities. Taking the infrastructural facilities as example, even schools in urban areas suffer from infrastructural facilities. Schools in Ibadan, schools in Abuja, schools in Lagos, even schools in the heart of Benue State here suffer from infrastructural facilities, which leads us to the conclusion that it is a matter of management. These educational policies are like gifts given to us. How you use it depends on you. What you use it to do depends on you. We cannot blame that on the president. We cannot place that on the government. We cannot place it on the policies. We can only force an horse to the river. We can never force it to drink. Standing before you today is Oyo VS Abia, representative of Oyo State, and as the second supreme speaker for the team proposition, I'll be closing the case on this argument. As the team proposition, we've been able to tell this house that the additional policies have been able to address the educational gaps because of the universal basic educational policy, which has catered for students in rural areas, also because of the national policy on education, which has ensured that every child has equal opportunity to qualitative education. The national policy on teachers incentive programs, which has improved the quality of education in teachers areas, and also the national broadband policy, which has given a chance to these students to have access to internet. They talked about rural area suffering, which we're able to rebut. We raised 2 POIs, which they didn't answer. They raised the POI for us, which we answered. We raised the point that there is reducing inequality in rural areas, which they were not able to rebut, which leads us to the point that they concede and confirm to these. Conclusively, we the team proposition does not support rural areas, neither do we support urban areas. But what we believe is that these gaps exist and that these policies have adequately addressed these gaps. But if the masses, if the parents of these people, if the people continue to sabotage the implementation of these policies, people will continue to get confused and be on the fence about whether or not these policies have adequately been approved and have adequately been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, the second supporting speaker of Team Proposition, for a nice performance. Now, we call on the second supporting speaker of Team Opposition to also close the case for their argument.
My name is Yoke Paul, the second supporting speaker for the side opposition. My opponent here states that we didn't answer the question for their POI. Well, for the lead supporting speaker, he said you needed recent statistics concerning the rate at which students do not complete their academics. Well, latest statistics from the World Bank in 2022 on education states that 63% of those in the rural areas complete their primary and secondary school academics, but 83% of those in the urban areas complete their education. This is to tell you that latest statistics have also proven that these students in the rural areas drop out from their academics. Well, we asked you POI, and you guys claimed that you answered our question, but you came beating around the bush, but you didn't give us the exact same thing we need, and that's the statistics. Well, the lead speaker, a very wonderful and intelligent opponent, made a statement concerning the digital learning incentives in the urban and rural areas. But in 2016, this policy was made and was implemented, but these resources given to the people, that's the students, were very inferior and damaged. This caused them not even attain the required thing they need in their academics. You also said something concerning the feeding programs that UBE has made. Well, these feeding programs do not even reach the grassroots level, which is the pupil. They tend to just stop at the place in which they are being given. These policies are being made, but rather they are not being implemented and being gotten to the grassroots level. Research has shown that 12% of those in the rural areas have internet connection. But in the urban areas, 55% of those in the urban areas have internet connection. And you tell me that this gap has been bridged. Adeyemi in 2019 stated a report on education that the pupil teaching ratio of students in the rural area is just 1:45. But in the urban area is what? 1:25. Research has also shown by Olayemi in 2022 on education that 50% of teachers in the northern east are unqualified. This is to tell you that even though the incentives are being made, they tend to teach the students invaluable and on lower academic things they need in the academics. Because as they are being unqualified, they don't tend to attain information they're going to pass down to the students. This sense of this topic itself is a broad topic which us in this country need to address. I still stand for the motion that this Nigerian educational policy have not bridged the educational gap between the rural and urban areas. Thank you so much.
Thank you, the second supporting speaker of Team Opposition, for a nice argument. This was a very heated argument. Now, I hand over to the judges for their judgment. Thank you.
Good evening, viewers. We've come to the end of this session, the debate tournament between Team Oyo and Team Abia. Team Oyo proposed the motion while Abia opposed the motion. And the motion states, have the educational policies addressed the educational gap between urban and rural areas? Now, we have these two teams. They did their best. They were so eloquent. They were constructive in the argument. In fact, they exhibited mastery of the subject matter, and they argued very well. On the part of Team Abia, the last speaker from Team Abia did a wonderful job when he told us that, in fact, he tried to trash the arguments raised by these people, by Team Oyo, but a tree, they say, cannot make a forest. Then, on the part of Team Oyo, the lead speaker came up to tell us that these policies have been made to tackle that problem. But if these policies are not implemented in your own side, that is either the problem of the government of your place or whatever. Then they have that teamwork whereby each of the speakers will come up to defend and let that motion stand. That is the stand of their team. They really held on to that. And the last speaker, the first supporting speaker from Team Oyo did a great job. Stylistically, very good. Then the second supporting speaker from Team Oyo also came up, re-emphasized the stand of their team, whereby they told us the policies are made already to curb this gap, because already they are, according to their first speaker, they already brought out the policies and how these policies were made for and implemented by some. And then the last speaker reiterated that if that policy is not reached or done in your own area, whose fault is it? So to them, the policy, or educational policies, has addressed that educational gap because they are made and implemented. So based on that, we have unanimous decisions here, and the win goes to Team Oyo. Thank you.